Okay, for more on what we can expect out of Russia this weekend, we are joined now by Sam Greene. He is a professor of Russian politics at King's College in London, where he's joining us from tonight. With war raging in Ukraine and some scenes of defiance after Navalny's death, the latest polling from Moscow, Sam, puts public trust in Putin at 86%. How did Putin manage to keep that level of support?
Well, in a couple of ways, right? Some of it, frankly, is genuine, or at least as genuine as possible, given the amount of propaganda that people are being subjected to in Russia. Putin has sold this war to a large part of the population as an existential conflict, a conflict not just against Ukraine, but against the West, a conflict that Russia must win and that only he can win on Russia's behalf. He's also worked very hard to make this a war that most Russians don't have to notice very much in their day-to-day lives. It doesn't affect most Russians in most cities. He makes sure that there's enough goods on the shelves, and that sort of day-to-day life goes on as normally as possible. But look, there's a lot of fear in the system. Most Russians are aware of the nature of the political system that they inhabit. They are aware of the fervor that is being inculcated in Russian society in support of this war and in support of Vladimir Putin. And they're worried, if not always worried about getting hit on the head by the state, they're worried about ostracism. They're worried about being seen by their neighbors, their colleagues, their relatives, and sometimes their friends as somehow disloyal and thus suspect and untrustworthy if they don't support Putin in this war, at least if they don't say that they support Putin in this war.
There are theoretical contenders here in this election, though they might not be household names. What can you tell us about them?
Well, specifically, and just by design, they're not household names. They're certainly not household names in the West, and they're not really even household names in Russia. They're second-tier figures for the most part in the parties that they represent. They were vetted and approved by the Kremlin before being allowed to be nominated and to go on the ballot. They have mostly made no bones about the fact that they do not expect to win this election. Some of them have even been clear that they're not necessarily trying to win this election, that they in fact are campaigning but support Vladimir Putin. Putin himself has not really put forward a vision for the future of the country, and all of the other candidates on the ballot are being very careful to make sure that they don't compete with or attack that lack of a vision.
I mean, we've seen what's happened to people like Navalny, who posed a serious threat to Putin. How are these people, not household names, as you say, able to run?
Well, they're able to run because this needs to feel like a choice for people. I mean, again, Russians know that they live in a tightly politically controlled system, but the idea that they have a choice is still sort of psychologically important. And Putin has always been very careful to at least make reverence to that sense of democratic franchise. There will also be some people who may support the war, may support Putin, but also feel that there may be injustices in parts of Russian society, would like to see more money go to blue-collar workers and more investment in social infrastructure and that sort of thing. And they'll have their candidates that they can vote for, but then they will hear the results that are announced on Monday, most likely, showing that Putin has got something, or at least reported to get something in the range of 80% of the vote. And they will be made to feel that he is the consensus candidate for the overwhelming majority of Russians.
What's 6 more years of Putin going to look like?
Well, first of all, we have to realize what Putin himself realizes, which is that while this election allows him to serve another 6 years, it is not actually the election that keeps him in power. It's, as a result, doesn't guarantee that he stays in power for 6 years. So I think we're likely to see another 6 years of repression. We're likely to see another 6 years of geopolitical conflict with the West as a means of justifying his rule. A lot of pressure on what remains of the democratic opposition within Russia, witch hunts, other sorts of activities, intended to keep him in power as long as possible and to see off threats really on a daily basis. It's hard to see a lot of room for optimism if what you're looking for is democratic change and opening in Russia.
Sam, appreciate your time tonight. That is Sam Greene, a professor of Russian politics at King's College in London.